Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Fandemic, where this week we are looking back at Week 6 to see what the Snooze Fest was all about, and looking forward to Week 7, where maybe things can get better for some of us on the Football Fandemic. All right, guys, well, I kind of said in the intro, this was not the greatest week for some of our homer teams. I know one of our homer teams I think did well, right, Josh? But we'll get to that in a moment. And yours didn't do bad, Brandon. Let's just be real. My team did not do well, nor did good things happen. And we're gonna start by getting right into the news this week. And I'm gonna start with the news that the Colts have had to deal with. Poor Colts. Just every time. Now, I came into this season, guys, and I think all of you who are Colts fans out there probably came into the season saying we don't have high expectations, okay? We're just going to temper that because new quarterback, and we just don't expect we're going to win a lot. So that was my incoming attitude. And then we started doing well, you know, even with Anthony Richardson going out most every game he started. He only finished one game so far this season, and that was one we lost. But he started several games very exciting. Even when he went out, you know, he'd score 2 touchdowns in the first 6 minutes or something like that. And you're like, okay, I see the flashes. But unfortunately, Anthony Richardson is leaving for season-ending shoulder surgery. And everybody's like, well, you know what? That's not a big deal because we have the best backup in the league, right? Gardner Minshew back there ready to do some Minshew mania. And I was kind of starting to feel like, yeah, you know, he came in Baltimore and he won that game. And he came in some other game, I can't remember off the top of my head, and did well and won. And so I'm like, he can do the same thing here, you know? And boy, against the Jags this week, where we needed to like take first place in the division. It was ours for the taking. It couldn't have looked worse for Mr. Gardner Minshew. Okay, I'll get to that in the review. But all this to say, it's not the peaches and cream I was hoping it would be. And on top of that news of Anthony Richardson leaving for season-ending surgery, which means we won't get to see him the rest of this year, and the whole, hey, he needs to start because he needs the reps, he needs the experience, that's not happening. So now he is going to be sitting and watching like so many pundits had hoped, and I did not hope. Hopefully he learns in this how not to get hurt because it's not like any of the things he got hurt on were horribly bad, you know, plays or calls on his part. The worst one was maybe as he ran in for that touchdown and he kind of let up and he was hit for the concussion, you know, learning not to let up. The one where he bumped his knee against his other knee and got the bruise, that was not that big a deal. The one where he got tackled that hurt his shoulder did not look like that bad of a tackle. And so I don't know if it's bad luck, but on top of the bad luck, let's just keep the bad luck news going for the Colts. Grover Stewart, who right up there as our defensive front with DeForest Buckner, just suspended for 6 games for PED. Come on, Grover Stewart. Come on, Grover Stewart. You know better. And he put out the boilerplate. Oh, I had no idea. I should have been more aware of what I was putting in my body. It's all my fault. I apologize. And that's what everybody says. Come on, Grover Stewart. You got to know. You got to keep track of what you're putting in your body. You know this happens all the time. Pay attention. If you're using a supplement, pay attention. And, you know, I don't know that it wasn't, you know, trying to get an edge. But anyway, Grover Stewart, who has been amazing for us, and I was really high on Grover Stewart, he's out. And so that does not bode well for the defensive side of the ball. Just a mess. Just a mess. That's the news with the Colts. I'm just going to leave it there until we get to the review, I guess.
Hold on. Before we just leave it there, I'm going to pick it back up, Matthew, and I'm going to throw it back at you.
Oh, no.
So I was watching, fan of the show, Pat McAfee. He has this other little show, not quite as popular as ours.
Right. But, you know, he's in there. If you haven't heard of Pat McAfee, you should check him out.
Yeah, Matthew actually introduced me to him. It wasn't Aaron. It was Matthew. But on his little show, you can find it on YouTube, just like ours. He had mentioned he is convinced that the Colts are cursed, and I think it's a combination of things, right? It's the Anthony Richardson injury, it's the PED suspension, it was the Jonathan Taylor stuff that is now resolved, but it was still there.
But boy,
up
here's
until the
part of
season.
that is he came back in the game. He came back and we were all, hey man, how are people going to deal with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor? Well,
He did
who
nothing.
knows?
Yeah.
He played 6 snaps and they were hardly with Anthony Richardson. They were all with Gardner Minshew. So
So
but yes, this goes all the way back to Peyton Manning. This goes to the letting Peyton Manning go when his neck was hurt and drafting Andrew Luck. That's where people say the curse came from. And Andrew Luck, we saw what happened with him. I think instead of a curse, that was more Ryan Grigson was an idiot and drafted stupid offensive linemen, none to be precise, that were any good, that were even in the first 6 rounds. He only picked people up in the 7th round. It's like, oh, they'll probably be good enough. We saw what happened to him, but like. In addition to that, just looking at all those quarterbacks where like, hey, we got Matty Ice and things are going to be great. Hey, we got Carson Wentz and things are going to be great. Hey, we got Phillip Rivers and he did all right. But like, I think that curse has been since Peyton Manning left. That's when the curse was supposedly put on the Colts, or at least that's the curse people think we are operating under. And right now, Pat McAfee may be right, man. Alive.
And so I want to know from your perspective, Matthew. Anthony Richardson is out. He's going to be limited on what he can do physically for quite some time. What do you expect him to do mentally to prepare for the game? I know you mentioned reviewing some of his game film. You expect him to review other quarterbacks in the league, kind of see if he can pick something up. You expect him to reviewing offensive playbooks, defensive formations, all of that. What are your thoughts on what he needs to do?
I think he's going to be doing all of that. He has been showing up, even though he's been in a cast. He's been showing up to practice every day, and like he is a strong believer in mental reps, and he's going to need those because that's what he's getting right now is mental reps. And in the off season, before he started this, he was working out with the same guy who corrected, was it Tom Brady's, or who worked with Tom Brady, quarterback guru. I think he will next off season, because this is going to take him out for this season. I think next off season he'll be doing that sort of thing again. I think he will be trying to learn defensive. The hard part is he's not getting the speed of the game the same as if you're in there. And that's what I think his biggest adjustment is. He needs to understand all these guys on defense are big and fast. Even if they're on teams that are not that great, they're still big and fast guys, and they can get to you quicker and they can hit you harder than those guys in college who might have whiffed on you or chosen not to hit you or whatever it is. He needs to understand that. He's got to watch. He's going to like be learning scheme stuff. He's going to be learning language for our offense. All that will help. And that will be good. I'm going to say this. I don't believe it's a true curse. I know that's a big thing out there. I don't think we were going to be amazing this year, even with him in all year. I think people would have gotten a feel for his play a little bit, and it would have gotten harder as we went on, even if he could have stayed healthy. So now the question is, are we just going to be? What it did is it takes the excitement out of this year. I wasn't thinking we were going to be great, but I loved the excitement of knowing at any moment I could see a glimpse of greatness, and that's awesome. And I was seeing those glimpses of greatness, and that was awesome. And just like looking at how him and Jonathan Taylor, once he got back on that contract, how that was going to work. And Zach Moss was still here, who was, not slouching in his role when Anthony or Jonathan Taylor was gone. I was excited about all that. That excitement is gone. Now the question is, are we in fact going to be one of those bottom teams again? I love Gardner Minshew, but Gardner Minshew, when people know how to plan for him, when they're not planning for the Anthony Richardson aspect, they seem to do pretty well at like shutting him down, keeping him at really small, quick, accurate passes. And we saw, if you watched last week's game, I'm just going into the review now. If we saw last week's game, that's what happened. He when he was throwing under 2.5 seconds, when he was doing those fast little quick throws, he was doing great, marching down the field, but only because they were giving him that underneath stuff and he couldn't get all the way to the end zone. So we would end up with kicking for 3. But when he would like try to hold it and throw, he would get hit and fumble, or he would throw an interception. And I'm just going to say it now. The score last week was 20-37 in the end. And we gave up 17 points off of turnovers. You do the math. You do the math. So, it's just that we may be in that Marvin Harrison Jr. sweepstakes after all, after this year. Because those first couple teams are probably going to pick those quarterbacks that are like so touted right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. may be able to fall to a team that does not as good as they were hoping to do. We'll see.
Yeah.
That would be a fun storyline. But I really want Anthony Richardson to come next year ready to go. And I don't know what that's going to take. Like you said, I think it's going to take all of that learning that he can do minus the experience.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that learning, and I've started to understand this a bit more. And you can see it, however you feel about Patrick Mahomes, you can see it in his development. He got used to the speed of the game, and that he started understanding what defenses were going to do and what their tendencies were. And if Anthony Richardson understands the tendency of a defense, if this linebacker is rushing me, I know that's a hole open that I can throw to. So I don't necessarily need the speed of the game. I have the wisdom of the game. And that's kind of how Tom Brady played so long. It's how Aaron Rodgers plays right now. It's how Peyton Manning would play, is you would read the defense and then put your team in the best situation based off what the defense was giving you. He might be able to find the tell that, oh my gosh, they're going to be in zone coverage. Oh, they're going to be in man coverage.
If he can get that.
I would be so stoked for you, because then the game, while yes, it's still the same speed, it's slower for him because he already knows, all right, this guy's fast, but there's going to be a hole open there in half a second.
And I will say that in these few games I saw, everybody was talking about how, he can throw the deep bomb, but he's just not that good a passer. He runs a lot. And truthfully, I saw really good passing from him and understanding, like quickly learning from a mistake that would happen and then like not doing that again. I saw that stuff happening. So I believe he has a high ability to process and remember. And if he can be learning, this is the way to put my team in the best place. I think he can make the throws, and I think he can run, maybe, not get hurt. Hopefully he doesn't turn into an RG3 or, even Lamar Jackson, who has so much talent, but kind of continually is hurt by the end of the year. I don't want that.
Yeah. And we start to see that separation of quarterbacks that understand the speed of the game and can read the defense and know what they have to do for their team, compared to quarterbacks that are just adjusting to the speed of the game. Yeah. And I think Jalen Hurts is in this category down here of still, he understands the speed of the game, but based off his performance last week, he had 3 interceptions in their loss to, who was it? Who beat the Eagles?
The Jets.
The Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets beat the Eagles. That was not supposed to happen. I'm just going to say that right now.
That was an upset we didn't pick.
but the Eagles, or not the Eagles. I guess the Eagles have a great offense. It's been talked about. They're, arguably best team in the NFL. Depends who you ask. They're going to throw them up in that conversation. Their offense is great. The Jets' defense is fantastic. And guess who couldn't read the defense based on his performance? Jalen Hurts. And so if you can have that mental advantage, I think that's so huge in the NFL compared to where people may want to put it. It's a lot bigger.
It is.
It also goes into longevity. Okay, I know this guy's blitzing and he's going to be behind me and I'm not going to be able to see him. Okay, I need to get rid of the ball quick. I know there's a hole open right there. I know this guy's coming over here in zone. I know they're staying in man. And this receiver historically is great of getting out of man coverage on the line. So bam, I'm throwing right there. Quick and easy stuff. So I hope for your sake, that's exactly what he does, is he focuses on the mental part and then gets some mental reps in there. Maybe while he's standing on the sideline at practice or during a game, he's reading the defense live and saying, I think this is happening. I think this is happening. And maps out in his head what he would do. Because that will be super beneficial for him and for you.
Yeah, what I'm going to have to do this year is just prepare myself for all of the CJ Stroud is the best rookie of this class so far after this year, because Anthony Richardson is now done. And though people were super excited about him, he's not going to be putting up game tape. Stroud still will be, and he's admittedly doing well. Bryce Young, he got Frank Reich, and boy, that's not looking good. Frank Reich's already handed over play calling duty, and if it doesn't get better after that, yikes.
No.
Hey, let's go back to the Eagles. The Eagles just signed a receiver that might help Jalen Hurts, even if he doesn't quite have that full understanding, and that is Julio Jones, right?
Oh, my gosh.
If Julio Jones has anything left to give, do you think he does?
That's the big question. They asked Julio that in his opening press conference. I only saw a snippet of it. But they're like, Julio, do you still have stuff left? He's like, well, I'm here, ain't I?
And they're like, I repeat my question. Do you still have stuff left?
Yeah.
You know what's crazy though?
I like Julio. The problem with every other team using Julio, because he was in Tennessee last, right? Is they're like, oh my gosh, Julio is our savior. Julio is going to be this guy he was with the Falcons for all of those years. He's not, okay? But what he can do, I mean, Julio statistically one of the best receivers we've ever seen. He's going to draw attention.
Yeah.
If you use Julio for 8 snaps a game, well, eight catches a game, that's still pretty good. And guess who's probably not going to be on him because you have some other fast receivers on your other receivers. You're going to want, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm focusing on A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and I know Julio is kind of the wild card in there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be special designed Julio plays for Julio because they also don't want him to be hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the Tennessee Titans, they got rid of their one good other wide receiver
A.J. Brown.
threat.
They sent him to the Eagles.
Right. Yep. And so Julio was in there. He wasn't like a third person to keep track of. He was like somebody they could easily say, take him out. Yeah. So going to the Eagles, man, he's going to have a lot more open looks. Yeah.
And right now it's D-Hop is like the guy getting all the attention.
Right.
In Tennessee.
One at a time.
We love D-Hop. Again, historically great wide receiver. But if he's the only guy on that team and is going to be the number one target, he doesn't have what he used to have to keep up with some of these young corners.
Yeah, it's like any team that just has one like really good receiver, it makes it too hard. I think that's why Michael Pittman's always been kind of underrated. He's been the guy now for a few years. Now Josh Downs coming in is looking like he could help. Alec Pierce is still dropping way too much.
He had a nice catch though.
He had one nice catch.
Nice catch.
Yeah, Devontae in Green Bay. Devontae in Green Bay is the last receiver I can think of where he was like the bona fide number one, getting 90% of the targets and still succeeding.
You got him and you got Travis Kelce. And those two, it's like, and Cooper Kupp was this when LA went to the Super Bowl. It's like, we absolutely know they're going to throw the ball to this guy. Let's put 7 guys on him and somehow he still catches it. It's like, they don't even care. Throw it, he still catches it. Those 3 guys, Devontae, Cooper Kupp, and Travis Kelce. You might, like that one season, anyway, let's just stick with those 3. I'm sure you could go back in history and find guys like that too.
Yeah.
But those 3 in recent memory really were, we know they're the number one, and they may be the only like real number one, but they still,
Yeah. And they're always open, and there's so many
like,
people on. It's wonderful. It's
I got so frustrated in that LA Super Bowl. I guess that was against the Eagles, right?
No.
That's the
Bengals.
Was that the Bengals when Cooper Kupp was just like always like, you're like, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to throw it to Cooper Kupp. And then you watch the play, they throw it to Cooper Kupp. And you're like, why do you not have somehow stop that? It's going to, he just gets open. It's like crazy.
Yeah. When Brandon Harris was here in Texas last year and the Packers got rid of their curse of the, maybe it wasn't when he was here. Brandon Harris and I talked about it. It's when the Packers finally got rid of their 49ers curse of them just steamrolling us all the time. And we beat them in like the last 3 seconds with the field goal. I was watching the game with Brandon Harris and Brandon's like, they're throwing it to Devontae. Just cover Devontae. They had 3 guys on him, and it's like a 56-yard gain. And then and he still got out of bounds, stopped the clock with no timeouts, and then Mason Crosby kicked the field goal from like 50 yards for the win. It was impressive.
Let me ask you a question. How is it that you get rid of a curse? Just asking, not for a friend,
Well, I've been trying to do that right now, Matthew. If I'm going to get into my personal life a bit on this podcast, might as well. So traditionally, I've always heard about people sacrificing sheep and lamb.
Oh my goodness!
And so I took a
dark quick.
I know where this is going. I know where this is going.
I went to the store. I didn't sacrifice the lamb; the butcher did. But I bought part of it and cooked it up and ate it over the bye week, hoping that the Packers roller coaster would stabilize. and we're going to find out this week. But I went the Lamb route.
It's not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going the whole route. I thought you were going to go the whole route of, I cooked a brisket for Brandon Harris, and he traded me Chris McCaffrey after I was 3-5, and now I was second in the league. And
that was a different kind of sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't brisket. That was we did burgers, cheese, and chicken.
He sold himself short.
Yeah.
Although that's good stuff. It's not brisket.
I think we did ribs too. We did a rack of ribs. Anyway, we have another another piece of breaking news. Jets trade wide receiver Mecole Hardman back to his former team, the Kansas City Chiefs, just for a few late round picks. I guess this is fine. Mecole wasn't really doing anything, and the Chiefs need someone that can not drop the ball.
Besides Kelsey, who is the good guy in the Chiefs? Because I had Sky Moore for a while on my fantasy team, and I had Kadarius Toney on my team, and I ended up dropping both of them. And they'll occasionally have a game where they catch something, and then they have nothing for a long. I'm like, who is besides Travis Kelsey? Who is their guy?
Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
I guess. Has he been doing pretty well fantasy wise?
I don't know fantasy wise. I haven't really kept up with him. He reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman. Where he's just quiet in the regular season, and then the postseason comes, and he's like the guy everyone needs to defend because he's unstoppable. And every time with the Packers in the postseason, he's had 100+ yards in each game. Every ball was caught. He was in perfect placements every single time. And same with the Chiefs. He was a big reason the Chiefs won their Super Bowl.
Yeah, last year.
He had like 175 yards. But he's like the modern day Julian Edelman. He's not a top 5 receiver, puts up ridiculous postseason stats, and then Blake Faith thinks that your postseason stats need to put you as a first ballot Hall of Famer for receivers.
If only we could hack on Blake Faith a little bit on this podcast. Seems like we do it every week. I don't think he listens, so I don't think it matters. Maybe he listens.
We're going to call him out right now. All right. So Josh and I have been trying to get a hold of Blake for what's it been? A month now? 4 weeks?
Since the Jets game.
That was week 1.
It was week 1.
That was week 1.
It was
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
It was week 1, and because it was week 1 because he messaged us in the group chat, and he even called you out on Snapchat too, Matthew. He was like, "Please pray for my former pastor and two of my friends," or something like that, as Aaron Rodgers gets injured because they chose him to go to the Super Bowl or whatever. And then he messages us and creates a group chat on Snapchat with us, and he's like, I don't see how y'all predictions are going right or something like that. And he's like, this is the dumbest prediction I've ever heard, et cetera, et cetera. And then he commented on one of our posts for our playoff bracket or whatever that we did in the off season. And he's like, that's the stupidest move. Like the day after we posted it. So like the day after it was a Friday or something before the season started. And he was like, I don't see the Vikings dropping off like you guys think they do. I see the Eagles doing a little bit better than you guys think, and I still don't see how the Jets win the Super Bowl. And the Vikings are 1-5 or 1-6, whatever. The Jets are 3-3. They still have a chance. And he's been quiet.
Yeah. So the funny thing is he's ripping into us, and every time Josh and I are just reaching out for clarification. So like one of the things is like he's like, all of your predictions are wrong, and he'll give like a few very specific examples, like. The NFC North is the Vikings division. It's not. It's the Lions division, like we said.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're like, Blake, now we're a few weeks into the season. You've had time to see stuff. We want to know who's each division winner. We want to know your thoughts on every division winner, on who's going to be at the end of the season. Crickets.
So we are calling you out, Blake, right now.
Yeah, if you listen.
Who do you see each division belonging to? You hear this? You answer somebody. All right.
That's right.
All of you who are not Blake Faith, just know we're waiting.
If you see Blake and you're listening to this, tell him to respond to Josh and I's text. It's about twice a week. We text him, Josh, about twice a week. So
now it's something like, hey, what is your opinion on this? And then every week Brandon would say that, or I would say that. And then it's like, now we're in week 7 instead of week 1 or something like that. Or now we're in week whatever instead of week whatever, because he doesn't respond to us. But every time I get on Snapchat or Facebook, I always see a post by Blake Faith. So it's like, he's obviously ignoring us.
Well, last week he might have jumped on to say, "Hey, you guys had a losing record. You were only 6 of 10 last week." But what's our prediction record this week, Josh?
We flipped the script completely, 100%.
Flipped it.
10-6, and we're 54-42 now.
Okay, so we're not so stupid and horrible, although we're not perfect. Who is? Not Adam Rank. That guy's
Not
way
Vegas.
off.
That guy.
Not Vegas.
Not Vegas. That's right. All right. Well, let's look at our week 6 games review. I'm just going to like briefly touch on mine since I already mostly did it, and that is the points off of picks, the points off of turnovers, because one of them was a fumble. 17. We lose by 17. Horrendous. Everybody's like going off of our team. Who knows what it's going to be? Up until Grover Stewart got suspended, I still thought we might have had a chance against the Browns, but man, it's just getting harder and harder. And I don't know if I can pick the Colts to beat the Browns this week like I would have, like in my head. I don't know what we picked at the beginning of the year, but like as I was looking at this week, I'm like, maybe we could do it. But then with that show from Gardner Minshew last week and Grover Stewart leaving,
I actually have it pulled up.
And the
so we can
Browns
talk
putting
about
up
it later.
quite the defensive performance.
They do have some defensive pieces. My MVP from last week, Josh kept asking me, who's your MVP? And I'm like, none. There is no one. No one was the most valuable player on our team last week. Nobody who played anyway. So I'm not giving it to anybody. I'm sorry, everybody on the Colts team. You got to do better to get my MVP vote.
Not
No
Matt
MVP.
Gay, no kicker, no punter.
We
The
had a
punter
couple
got a lot of
kicks.
action.
We
Yeah,
had a
punter
couple
got a lot
kicks
of
and we had
action.
some punts, but like nothing that like changed the game.
All right.
So yeah, none. Josh, what about the Commanders? This is our lone bright spot, right?
Yeah, this is our lone bright. They won actually. They finally won.
Woo!
This is like the complete game I've seen the team play all year. Defense was on point with everything that needed to happen. The offense was working great. Sam Howell probably had his best game of his career so far. I mean, although he had some sacks and although he had some, missed throws and held on the ball too long. This is like the game that I saw Sam Howell, like he was in like he was locked in basically. He knew what he needed to do and he did it and it just worked out perfectly.
Who'd y'all play this last week?
The Falcons.
Falcons.
So like a team that's always up and down, Cornelius Lucas, who was our backup left tackle or backup tackle in general, stepped in for Charles Leno because he was out for personal reasons. His wife and him they had a miscarriage, so sorry for them. Completely understandable. But Charles Leno came in and he played perfectly. He played like a left tackle. I want a left tackle on our team to play. So he had 29 blocks. He played pretty much the whole game, but he had 29 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks allowed, 0 pressures allowed, and PFF gave him an 89.2 grade, second among tackles for pass blocking for the week. So I don't know if that says anything to Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy, but I feel like if Charles Leno is playing this coming week against the Giants, I feel like you need to move Cornelius Lucas to right tackle and take out Andrew Wiley because Charles Leno's always up and down. He maybe he lets the sack up, maybe he doesn't, but he's not as bad as Andrew Wiley. And if Cornelius Lucas showed enough that like our problems are really at the offensive line or really at the tackles, then you really need to move Andrew Wiley out and put Cornelius Lucas in alongside Charles Leno at left tackle. So, I mean, the offensive line did look better overall than they have in the past couple weeks. So that's a plus. Defensively, our defense, like I said earlier, they stepped up when it mattered, especially the cornerbacks. We had 3 interceptions, and Benjamin St. Juste picked one off in the end zone that would have tied the game up, and then Jamin Davis sealed the game, and that he picked it off. We went down and scored, or we had to punt or something like that, and they got the ball back, and then Jamin Davis again picked it off and sealed the game for us. We had to knee it out. So those two guys really stepped up. And I'm really starting to see Jamin Davis, our linebacker who we drafted a couple years ago, who I was like iffy about because Jeremiah, the linebacker for the Browns, I can't remember his last name and honestly can't pronounce it, but I wanted him at linebacker. But Jamin Davis is stepping up and proving to be a very solid linebacker for us. So overall, the defense stepped up. They had pressures on the D line. The cornerbacks picked off 2 or 3 balls, and Jamin Davis sealed the game with an interception. And that is my MVP. Jamin Davis is the MVP of the week for me, and the only MVP that we had for the week, actually.
Okay. We had not a high mark, but not a low mark for Brandon's team. Who was your MVP of the bye week?
Yeah, I like a few different people for my MVP. So some actual really great stuff happened. Eric Stokes is back. He's been battling injury. He's the guy we talked about he was one of those rookie corners that came in 2021 that actually looked pretty good. Usually rookies are bad. Almost always rookie corners are bad. It's just a hard position to play in the NFL, and if you're a rookie trying to adjust, it's even harder. And he did quite well. The thing that bodes well for him is his speed, and he's able to stuff people at the line of scrimmage. He's not very good with ball tracking. There's a few interceptions he's could have had so far in his career that have just been pass deflections, but they've come on key moments. So it's still very important that he's mentally focused like that. I'm going to put Eric Stokes as my MVP. David Bakhtiari officially out for the season. I don't know if we talked about that last time. The worst thing happened. It was his knee again. I think it's his like 8th or 9th surgery on his knee.
I think he's such
COVID.
good friends with Aaron Rodgers. He's like, man, I can't leave him out there on his own. I got to go out for this season too.
That's
Keep him
right. That's
company.
right. And before he was officially labeled out for the season, we would have been able to trade him. But now that he's on IR, you can't trade a player on IR because they have to pass a physical with the other organization. That's just one of the rules of the NFL.
That's a good rule. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand. I get it. But there were talks about trading away David Bakhtiari. I doubt he's going to be with Green Bay next season. I think
I just think he's been
gets
in
cut,
200 too long, and
yeah. Allegedly, this is supposed to fix his injury. I liked the idea before we put him on IR of sending him to Denver. With a 3rd round pick and getting Jerry Jeudy.
Yep.
Which has been tied to both mine and Matthew's team.
Jerry Jeudy's been seen in Green Bay, right?
He has. I don't know if that was real, but people have said it was. But did you guys, speaking of him, did you guys see what Steve Smith Sr. said on Monday night about him?
He said, nobody take him. If your team wants him, don't do it.
If anybody asks me about him, don't take him because he's like lazy and stuff. But I don't know the Denver team, so maybe he is, but overall,
well, I mean, they said the same thing about
just
Chase Claypool in Chicago.
Yeah, maybe he just needs a new environment. But Destin Adams, you guys were talking about the Colts. Destin Adams, who is a Colts sports writer, says that Colts sources have told me that the Colts and Broncos have had extensive trade discussions about a deal that would send Jerry Jeudy to Indianapolis. No deal has been finalized or agreed to at this time, but this has been progressed beyond exploratory conversations. So I don't know who. Probably a middle round pick, I guess.
When is trade deadline?
I think week 8.
So we're coming up on it. We still got.
I think either beginning of November of this coming week.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just after Halloween. So you got a couple weeks, Matthew.
Couple weeks to see what happens.
Yeah.
October 31st.
Halloween. There you go. That could be a scary Halloween or a good Halloween. We'll find out. Right. It really is a trick or a treat.
That'll be that'll be a segment on a podcast. Trick or treat, NFL Trade Line edition.
I like it.
Treat.
All right. our one live viewer, you heard it first.
You heard it first.
All right. I'm going to hop over. I'm going to take hold of the Brandon Harris corner as kind of my week 6 review.
Back.
All right.
So week 6, Brandon Harris corner. Are these actual Brandon Harris things, or these?
No,
we just basically. Brandon Harris said he no longer has a team. He said he's not a Patriots fan anymore, and we said, "Are you bailing?" And he's like, "I've never really been a fan of any team. I just like football." And we're like, "Nah," and he's like, "No, yeah, I like teams, and so I don't have a team." And so we called this. We called this any game that's not one of our homers is now Brandon's homer. That's how he gets this corner.
All right. Hold on. Let me hop back here. Brandon took so much pride in being a Patriots fan before Tom Brady. Tom Brady.
That's what he says.
Yeah. Well, all right, Brandon. We're starting to smell what you're putting out. Okay, we smell it.
Smells a lot like Blake Faith.
As much as we love Brandon Harris, he's just becoming another Blake Faith. It's like I like this team, but. I'll jump on this team bandwagon if they do well. And then it's like, and he comes on our podcast. He's like, I'm a Cowboys fan, diehard. You heard it here first. And if the Cowboys don't make the playoffs, we don't know what's going to happen. He might be a Dolphins fan. Like we said.
All right. We got the Blake Harris corner over here. All right. Browns upset the 49ers. Matthew called it. And to be honest, I did not see it happening.
I didn't either.
But they really showed. They really showed their defensive skills. The Browns did.
Which is one reason I'm not so strong on the Colts beating the Browns.
Yeah, it was just an overall, like, the injuries on the 49ers kind of what put them out of the game. Brock Purdy got out. CMC got out. Trent Williams got out. Those are like their 3 cornerstones on
Yeah.
along with Debo on their offense, and
Yeah.
they just couldn't keep up with a superior Browns defense.
Is Trent Williams out for the season?
Not
What
sure.
was-
I don't.
Yeah, his injury I think was pretty bad, and he is like currently the best left tackle in
He
the
is,
game.
yeah, and seeing how well he's been doing since he got traded, and how he was a Redskin before, and we traded him for nothing. It's like we really need a left tackle, and I miss him.
Jets upset the Eagles. We touched on this a bit earlier when I was talking about quarterback
see that.
mentality, understanding stuff. Yeah, watch out, Blake. They're 3-3. They're not out of this.
Yep, they're not out.
Lions. Who's been calling it the past few years? We have. That's
did.
right. Dan Campbell gets to town. He really picked up a pile of manure
Mhm.
and has turned it into something pretty
Just
good.
like you said. So before our Lions games, usually we're in our manure games or our whatever, or not even mentioned, and now they're always in our marquee games. So Dan Campbell really flipped the switch on us.
Yeah,
And he did it with Jared Goff, who everybody dissed
Wrote
so
off.
hard when he
He's
got
been a Pro
him in the
Bowler,
trade.
Pro Bowler, borderline Pro Bowler, and not in the MVP conversations. But if he plays like a couple good games in the next couple weeks, he could be in the top 5 voting.
I don't want Jared in the MVP conversations. What I want is a sole winner of Coach of the Year for Dan Campbell. Sole winner, Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year.
He could get it.
And I want that so bad. And he was my pick before the season started. I know Matthew had Robert Saleh as his pick.
Mine too.
Which is still.
Did I really? Oof.
No, I think.
Yeah. And then I brought up
look.
the elite quarterback talk. Elite quarterbacks, coaches never get
Matthew had.
picked. But Aaron's out. So
I just controlled that real quick. Brandon said Dan Campbell. I said Robert Saleh. This is also before injury. And Matthew said Dan Campbell / Robert Saleh. And I think he said, I can agree with both of those guys. So I'm just going to agree with both of you and say that those are both my picks.
Yeah, I was high on both of them, just from the Robert Saleh, from watching the Hard Knocks and just thinking where they could go. And if they ended up winning everything, then it's like, oh yeah, it's hard to vote against him. But Dan Campbell's always been my favorite. I mean, from the time he came and they were trash, I just loved his demeanor. I love his.
Yep.
This is what his third season. His third season in Detroit. He has really turned it around more than any coach in their history.
Yeah,
he's turned it around, and I don't see another candidate above him right now for Coach of the Year. To me, it's straightforward. Dan Campbell. They are taking away the NFC North. Every week. It's the margins widen and widen and widen. It's a race for second place. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's race for second. It's like a Dan Campbell, and then there's a far cliff to drop off to, and then it's probably I guess Kyle Shanahan or Nick Sirianni.
Oh yeah, in the NFC overall.
I was talking about overall NFL.
Yeah,
head coach of the
year
in
the NFL. Yeah, Dan Campbell. He's when I get called up to vote, Dan Campbell's the guy I'm putting down. No one else is even getting a look. Giants Bills on Sunday Night Football. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of controversies around this. Everyone's like, the refs are trying to screw us over. And there was, let the players play. Just stay consistent game to game in what you're going to call. Okay, that's all I ask for. Or at least stay consistent for the game you're calling in that moment. That's all I'm going to ask for. And they stayed consistent through the game. I'm not angry about it. They let the players play, and the Bills barely came out of that alive. It feels like Josh Allen is taking on the approach of, I'm going to play exactly as good as my opposing quarterback, which this week was Tyrod Taylor. When he plays Patrick Mahomes, he's 10,000 times better. But he's definitely taken on different approaches depending on the week. And that's something the Bills got to get ironed out if they want a long-term success. And we had a Chargers fan go viral, and there's been a lot of debate about this. She was on the Pat McAfee show. She's also allegedly a Vikings fan, I guess.
No, I think I heard from basically what she said was, I don't know if she lived in Minnesota before, but she's in like she said on Pat McAfee, she's a diehard NFL fan, crazy NFL fan. and maybe they lived in Minnesota, but once they moved to LA, she became a Chargers fan. So, you know, understandable in some cases, but you know, as long as she's because nobody's a diehard Chargers fan, you know what I mean? You don't see that.
What? No,
What?
Philip
Yeah,
Rivers
there
is.
are.
Philip Rivers is. Yeah.
We had a guy here at Eastern who came to Eastern to play football from San Diego.
Really?
He asked me. He came in the first day. He's like, "Hey, bro, you think I'll need a coat here?" And I'm like,
Yes.
"You'll need a coat here." And he's like, "Is this enough?" He had on like a long sleeve T-shirt. I'm like, "That is not enough." He came in January after that, and he had a coat, and he's like, "Hey, bro, when I was on my way here, my eyelashes froze. They got ice on them. Who would live in a place like this?" And I'm like, evidently you
All
would,
of us.
because you're
All of
here
us,
right
yeah.
now. So, yeah, but he was a diehard Bolts fan, man. He was Chargers fan to the core.
That's
so I
good.
know there are Chargers fans.
Yeah. A lot of people thought this lady was like an NFL actress,
Oh,
just
really?
planted in the game to like boost people up because she got so much screen time during the game. They kept like
It was
flashing to her.
anger, it was happiness, it was
It was every emotion.
depression, it was
Yeah.
They just love her range of emotion, I guess.
Yeah.
The cameraman's like, there's one showing it. Get her again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what we got for Brandon's Corner, right?
Yep. Before
The
we move
Blake
on to
Harris
week 7,
comment,
yeah,
yeah.
before we move to week 7 of our previews, our week 7 previews, I want to come over to our predictions for week 7. We made these a long time ago. We're not changing them, but I want to ask you guys if you look at these and you can see these games now that we're in the fold of things, you know, in the thick of things, you know, teams have gotten injuries, you know, whatever. Would you, if you could, we're not going to, would you change any of these predictions we made on the screen? I think the number one thing that sticks out
Raiders.
to me is Buccaneers. I would switch Buccaneers over Falcons instead of Falcons over Buccaneers.
I might put the Raiders beating the Bears.
I think everything else, except for a couple upsets that could happen, because there've been
Jags
crazy
and
upsets.
New Orleans could go
Yeah.
either way right there,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Mhm. Exactly. Like there's been crazy upsets. You know, the Bengals started out slow, which kind of screwed us over, and then these other upsets that happen in the league. Like you never, like Matthew said last week. You know, every team plays for a reason, and I can see any team winning when he's talking about the Browns and 49ers. So any team can win, and anything can go any team's way. But so our record won't be 16-0, of course. But I can see the Buccaneers beating the Falcons, honestly.
And I could see possibly the Dolphins beating the Eagles.
The way they're playing, yeah.
And I could, did you say the Bucks beating the Falcons possibly?
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, there's ones that I could see going.
I can also, just
either
the way
way.
things have been going, might be a little bit of homer. I can see the Commanders beating the Giants.
New York.
this week.
New York is looking like
they're bad.
putridness
Yeah,
again.
they're really bad.
Yeah, I'm
So-
still going to stick with Vegas and Chicago. I can see Vegas winning.
Mhm.
I could also see Chargers Chiefs being switched. Those are always.
I mean,
I think
we're
all of
going
their
to-
games have been one score.
Yeah, we're
Chargers,
going
Chiefs,
to be
yeah.
talking about upsets and locks and stuff. And so, an upset, when we pick an upset, we're obviously picking one probably against what we picked before. So I'll just say that before we get there.
Yeah. All right. Let's head into Week 7 preview. Matthew, you got a bye week? What are you going to do this week? You going to the beach or?
I think it doesn't.
We don't have a bye week. We're against the Browns.
Oh, never
Right.
mind. You've talked about that. It just wasn't.
I
in the
just
script.
forgot to.
Yeah, we're against the Browns, and I unfortunately am picking the Browns to win. I think the score will be something like 31-17. I think we might make a good push at it early, but it's going to kind of get away from us, and I think it's going to be one of those games where that defense of the Browns is what like really shows against. And I think our defense will be a little short without Grover Stewart in there. We're going to have somebody else in, but it's not going to be as maybe explosive. We've been a pretty good defense this year, and I've really enjoyed that the defense has been so strong as we've been getting used to what that offense can be. I think this week we're going to see it not necessarily turn bad, but it's just not going to be as good. And so, yeah, I think Browns are going to win this one, unfortunately. But I'm still going to watch it,
Yeah,
because
I'll be there. We can watch it together.
I'm a fan, Blake and Brandon. Watch.
I'll be
even
there.
when
We
I
can
think
watch
we're
it
gonna
together,
lose.
Matthew.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Me Giants at Commanders at Giants. Like I said, we were talking about earlier when I said, what would you switch for this Week 7 matchup? I can see the Commanders winning this. I mean, Sam Howell, I feel like he's finally progressing, if not becoming a good quarterback, like a future starting quarterback in the league. Offensive line is still iffy. I don't know what to expect from them. The Giants have a pretty good defensive line with Leonard Williams and what's his name? I just can't remember the linebacker. I think, and it's not Kayvon Thibodeau, is it? I can't remember the linebacker. Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Williams, Leonard Williams, all three of those guys coming off the edge. I don't know how our offensive line is going to handle that overall, but it'll be an interesting matchup. Their offensive line is also as bad, if not worse, than ours. So if our defensive line actually plays like we did against like last week against the Falcons, then we should get a couple sacks, a lot of pressures, a lot of TFLs. We should have a field day on defense line, is what I'm saying. So I'm looking forward to that. The defense line finally making a presence in our, in the game. We, like I've said earlier, the past couple weeks, the defense has been bad. Especially against the Bears. They've been not up to par for what I thought they would be. I feel like this is a game they kind of get back at, and this doesn't mean anything about how I am going to say. I'm not going to say anything like, "Oh, Jack Del Rio saved his job finally." That's nothing. But we have so many stars on our defensive line where it's like they should be playing at that level and they're not. And I feel like this is the game they finally play at that level and bounce back. Score prediction, 28-17. I will say the 28-17 Commanders, I just feel like they have an edge based off of what I just said. Like both offensive line sucks and both defensive line is pretty good, or pass rush is pretty good, but I just feel like the Commanders have a better overall offense. Daniel Jones does not look good at all. He doesn't look like he did last year, and I feel like they've already made it. People are already realizing they made a mistake paying him that extension instead of paying Saquon. The only thing I am worried about is, if you guys remember last year, this play right here, the no call PI, which they got their karma back from last week against the Bills, where they no call PI on the last play. If you remember this play, this is the same exact referees that are going to be calling this game Sunday. Same exact referees that call this game. So I'm a little bit iffy of like what might happen. But overall, I don't know. I still see the Commanders winning by 11 points at 28-17.
Okay.
Right. Well, the Packers are back. We are going to Denver, I think.
I think this bodes well for you.
I do. I do. We like Sean Payton. Sean Payton's a friend of the podcast, friend of EIU, place we all call home. I do not think Sean Payton's going to win. It's been... since day one of him being there, it's been such a challenge for him to try to. He's been pulling and yanking teeth and not getting the results he wants. I also don't expect the Packers to be putting up, 45 points on this team. I get Aaron Jones is back. I get Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. All of these guys are healthy. I don't have faith in our offensive line, given our performance against the Raiders, where I mentioned way too many times they just didn't know their blocking assignments. Mm-hmm. That's such a fundamental and crucial part of what you're doing as an offensive lineman. To not know that does not give me a ton of faith, because as we know, when your offensive line is stellar, you have a much better chance of winning. So much better. When your quarterback has time, when your running back has space, you're looking pretty good. I still think the Packers pull out the win here. I think it's a closer game than we're all expecting. More field goals than we're all expecting, if I'm being honest. I think it's going to come down to about 23-16, somewhere in there. I think it's going to be mostly a kicking game. Yeah, some good plays, some stuff. We're going to be like, wow, that was a good flash. Maybe 3 of those plays combined on both teams throughout the game. I'm going to watch it because I'm a fan, and everyone else is going to watch it if it's playing in their area because it's a 3:25 game. Right. But you don't have to tune into it. I don't think you're going to miss an exciting game, except for 3 or 4 plays.
Okay, well, I think this is a perfect place to jump into our marquee manure and my games. So I'm just going to throw these games up here, and I'm going to have us talk about them. And Josh, do you want to lead us through these today? Who's up?
Yeah, I'll start, and then you guys can. I guess you guys can decide who goes next. I chose my marquee game as Lions at Ravens, and I believe this might be my second week in a row choosing a Lions game. Let me look. No, Matthew chose Lions Buccaneers last week. I chose something else. So Lions at Ravens. I mean, like we talked about earlier, Lions might be the best team in the NFL, and there's no stopping that. There's no saying they aren't. They're top 3, if not top 1 in the league. The Ravens, they're still a top team in the league. You know, I'd say top 10, but they're not out of the race basically. And what I'm looking for in this game is if Lamar can bounce back, and if his receivers especially can bounce back from a very poor performance the last couple weeks they've had against the Titans and Steelers, where they're dropping balls or Lamar's missing a couple passes or whatnot. I'm looking for that in the offense and the defense. I'm just hoping they can, make it an interesting game and it's not a blowout and they stop the Lions just a little bit. I don't want the Lions to win. I'm saying that right now, but I'm just hoping to make it an interesting game and it's not a blowout, because the Ravens have an okay to good defense, and the Lions have a great offense. I'm just hoping that they kind of match each other somewhat, and it's not a 44-10 blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you want to go next, or you want me to, Brandon?
Matthew, I'll let you go. I'll go third.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, because I had put 2 games in my marquee possibility slot. One was Lions Baltimore. I ultimately chose not to choose that one, which is the one that Josh chose. But I think I probably picked the one that you're going to pick, and that is Miami Philly.
Yes.
I had a tough time because Lions Baltimore, that's like interdivision. Now, they're in the same division and they're NFC. Or they're not in the same division.
No, they're not.
Lions,
different conferences.
Right, Baltimore's AFC. They're both north.
Yes.
But I ultimately chose not to pick them. I chose Miami Philly because they're both 5-1. Eagles coming off that loss this week, and Miami being beat by the Bills. They both are at 5-1. They're both trying to show, hey, I'm the cream of the crop here in my respective conference. So I picked Miami Philly, which might have been the one you picked as well. Is that same reasoning?
I did pick Miami Philly. This is a game I will not miss. Technically, right. I don't miss any of them because I watch it on Red Zone, so it just cycles through the exciting moments of all the games. But 7 hours of uninterrupted football. This game, I guarantee, will get a lot of highlights in that.
Right.
They're arguably, depends who you ask. Don't ask us because the Lions are the best. Arguably the 2 best teams in the NFL right now.
Right.
We do have, statistically, if you want to look at it, the Dolphins are the number 1 passing team and number 1 rushing team in all of the NFL. And if you look at offensive statistics, those are basically your 2 big statistics, passing and rushing yards. And so I need to know what Philly's going to do to overcome that, because last week was not cutting it against Zach Wilson.
Right.
You get Tyreek Hill and Tua. That's ooh. Now, the Dolphins defense, I'm not 100% sold on all of the time. It does have some very good key contributors there. Do not want to take away Xavier Howard. Do not want to take away Jalen Ramsey.
I don't even know if Jalen Ramsey has been playing yet. I don't know if he's coming back.
No, he might not be back yet. But he's still there as like a defensive mastermind.
He's back at practice, so he might play. He's returning to practice. He has returned to practice this week. Yeah,
so they're going to need – it's going to be – this is the NFL's dream, right? It's going to be an offensive shootout of a game is what it needs to be.
It's Sunday Night Football. Everybody's watching it. And I just like to add a little note. I'm having Philly cheesesteaks that night, so.
Well, there you go.
I guess we know who you're voting for.
No, I'm actually voting for the Dolphins because the Eagles are in my division, but I just wanted to say I'm having Philly cheesesteaks.
I think Miami comes out in this one. I really do. It's hard. It's hard to imagine they don't. I love the laid back vibe that they've got. It's not sustainable, but I love what they're doing.
Who, Miami?
Because they're McDaniels is like going in. I don't know if you've watched like the mic'd up of him on the sidelines. Just YouTube it. It'll pop up.
I like Mike McDaniels. He's funny.
Yeah. But he's like, he's calling the play, and he covers his mouth. He's like, "Oh, I think you should run it. Actually, no, pass it. Actually, I don't care what you do. Just go get us yards."
I have seen that.
I love what he's doing. I don't think it's sustainable long term. Matthew's obviously loving Tyreek Hill, who
Oh,
In
yeah.
my opinion, if he keeps up what he does, if he passes this 2,000 yard mark, needs to be the league MVP. I don't
Agreed.
care what statistics Tua puts up.
I don't
just
care.
worry.
Look,
I
the
just
only
worry
thing,
because the beginning of the year always looks so good in Miami,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
then
yeah, the
so
only,
and
I'm
then
not counting
December
those
comes.
eggs yet.
the only thing a quarterback or running back, because they also can win offensively, or even a tight end. But the only thing a quarterback and running back can do, if Tua puts up 2,000 plus yards, because that's like a mark.
You
That's
mean
nobody.
Tyreek?
Tyreek, sorry, yeah. If nobody's ever done that. The only thing Tua can do as a quarterback is pass for 6,000 yards, because nobody's done that, or pass for 65 or 70 touchdowns, because nobody's done that. And the only thing a running back can do is probably run for 2,500, because nobody's done that, or run for 20 plus touchdowns, because I think it's only been done a couple times. Tyreek is on a different level, and he's on a pace to, like you said, he's at like 200 yards away from 1,000 receiving yards, and it's week 7. He could probably hit that this week, definitely next week, if not this week. And
Yeah.
there's no stopping him, and speed kills, as they say.
Yeah, and he's definitely been killing people.
Mhm.
Not physically, but their souls have left their body.
He runs past the cornerback, and you just see this soul go poof.
Yeah, that's right. And we've seen that a few times in NFL history, and it feels like it happens every week when you play against Tyreek Hill since he started in the league. Someone's soul leaves their body because you have to play so far off the line of scrimmage to cover him. You just throw a quick screen. Well, now you're so far off the line of scrimmage, he's going to get 15 yards.
Yep.
And then you come up and you try to box him in. Oh, well, he just gets past you because you have to turn around and then catch up to him, which no one can catch up to him. And then boom, it's a Hail Mary and he has a touchdown. And it's a force to be reckoned with. But I got the Dolphins in this one. I'm going to roll right into my manure game.
Okay.
And we'll reverse the order. I
Sounds
have a
good.
game I'll probably watch just for personal enjoyment. But I don't expect it to be close, even with the injuries on one of the teams that we've mentioned. But my manure game's Niners-Vikings in Minnesota.
Okay. I wondered
Justin
about that.
Jefferson is out. I want people to understand this. Justin Jefferson is out. He is, one of those guys that makes a difference when he's on the field. And when he's not on the field, you're like, ooh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Do we know who's out for 49ers? Like those people who
We'll
left?
probably find out Saturday or Sunday, because it's a Monday night game.
Yeah, with Kyle Shanahan, I don't know if they're ever out.
Yeah, exactly. With Kyle Shanahan, Sam Donald's going to go in there and throw three touchdowns, and whoever their backup running back is going to have 150 yards rushing. You never know. But
you just play until you're out for the season. That's the Shanahan model, and he's like, I don't care who's in there. If you can, if you're working at high V like Kurt Warner was, he'll take you.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But that's my manure game. I think the Niners are just going to go and completely dominate Minnesota, and not to mention Minnesota's coach. What's his name?
O'Connell.
Yeah, he's from the Shanahan tree.
Yep.
So he's
from that infamous Redskin tree where everybody leaves and they become successful.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan,
Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, the Texans offensive coordinator. They're all doing well.
Yeah.
And we're at 3-3.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, what do you got?
For my manure game, I just want to say I have no ill will here, and this is taking us homers out of this. I would probably have to lean toward the Packers. Broncos just does not seem like it's going to be that great of a game to me. And Brandon said it in his, he said, guys, you don't even have to tune in for this one. I don't think it's going to be a great game. And so I picked that. I still think the Packers are going to win. I don't think it's going to be like a game you're going to be like, wow. And I'm just saying, I have Jordan Love as my quarterback, and I anticipate that it's not going to be great. I also had Anthony Richardson. That's not great. And I picked up Russ Wilson.
That was a
What
great
am I
last
doing? This fantasy guy is like an idiot. I just thought maybe he would surprise me because he's been having pretty good statistics even though they've been losing. But then the week I play him, he's like junk.
10 points. Yeah, I saw that.
It was the worst. Anyway,
and that's when you played me, right?
Yeah,
when you started Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Let's just not talk about it. This is filthy. Oh man. Anyway, I think that might be my manure game of this week. Even though there's a lot of ones that could be bad, I picked that one as one. Except for what he said it's an afternoon game, and if it's on in your area, we're going to watch it. But
Yeah, it's
There
it's
you
a
go.
325 game. Odds are 25% of the country is listening to it, or 25% of the people watching this
odds
podcast.
are
map.
I'm
There was
going
a
to watch
map.
it, even though I just said it's my manure game.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a map, and I forgot to pull it up or like it or whatever, so I could pull it up now. But most of the country is going to get the Chiefs and Chargers game,
Yeah,
And
please
then-
watch that one if you can.
and
Yeah.
I
We
probably
are-
will,
so,
to be honest.
I do not
Yeah.
know. I'd have to find it again, but I'll pull it up when I can. But I believe, me and you, Matthew, will be in Charleston. Lincoln probably won't get it either, but I believe we get the Packers game because all of Wisconsin. and
Actually,
then
I have
you have Red Zone, so it doesn't
red.
matter.
No, I have
Yeah.
not just Red Zone, the
Sunday
Sunday
ticket.
ticket. So I will probably be watching Chargers. I'll probably put them both on the screen because you can have the multi-screen thing. I'll probably do that, but I'll probably be focused mostly on the Chargers and just kind of watch whenever Green Bay does something good. So, all right. What about you, Josh?
Same thing for you, basically. But a little bit more in depth. Packers at Broncos. I don't know what to expect. I mean, you just played 2 weeks ago. You played the Raiders, and you threw 3 interceptions, made some very bad plays. The Raiders have a sub-average defense. The Broncos have a very bad defense. I don't know what to expect out of Love. Aaron Jones is coming back, so that might help. That actually will help a lot. But I just don't know what to expect offensively, and the defense is not scary as you say every year. They're just okay. They're average, and Russell Wilson, and as much as the defense is not putting in work besides last week, Russell Wilson, like Matthew said, has been putting up numbers. I expect this game to be close, and I just don't know what to expect. So I'm just like, it's to my manure because of that. I just don't know
Aaron
what to
Jones
expect.
is the difference, and he is
It
back on
probably
my
will be.
fantasy league this
Mine
week.
too. In another league, yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out here. It's a bit of fantasy advice.
Oh,
I
yeah?
recommend picking up either of their kickers and starting them. It's going to be a kicking game. A kicking game. I can promise you that. I feel like Anders Carlson, he's going to get a few from 40, maybe one from 50. That's going to bode well for you. Remember our kicking rules in our league and a few other leagues I'm in as well. 0 to 30 yards is 3 points. 40 to 49 is 4 points. 50 plus is 5 points for your kicker.
Remember that game where Matt Gay was my kicker and he kicked the NFL record of over
Yep.
50 yards, and he had 5 kicks in the game, 4 of them over 50, and I got like a huge score from him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's nice when your kicker makes the difference on your team. If you find either of those kickers, I'm comfortable with my kicker right now, but I'm putting it out there for some people that might not have performed as well. Brian,
We like
and
we like to throw out good advice, Brian.
Isn't Brian the same person you said just to bench all? Oh no, that was me you told, but to bench all your players or to
yeah,
bench
when,
Aaron Rodgers.
yeah, Brian's the one we called and said, Brian, we don't think Aaron or think he's going to have a calf injury. You need to put in Zach Wilson. This was the night before the game. It
And
was
then,
like
boom,
he only needed 4 points from Aaron Rodgers to win.
and he didn't get it.
So anyway, Josh, what's your my oh my?
My oh my. I know I've said the Falcons looked iffy and that could switch that earlier to the Buccaneers winning, but I feel like the Falcons could have Falcons at Buccaneers is my oh my. I feel like the Falcons could have a bounce back game. I mean, the Falcons rushing attack was held to like barely anything against the Commanders, but I feel like the rushing attack at some point will have to bounce back. And I know the Buccaneers have a good defense as well, but when you have Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson, who's barely been getting any work, and then Bijan Robinson, you're going to run the ball a lot. And Desmond Ridder with 3 interceptions, I mean, he's not had that at all this season or nothing close to it. I feel like he bounces back a little bit, and this is closer than people think. I mean, Buccaneers just came off a very bad loss to the Lions. They only scored like 3 points or something like that, maybe 10. So this is a game where both teams are coming off a very low week, and both of them are going to bounce back, I feel, and this could surprise people.
I'm going for my oh my. Pittsburgh Steelers versus LA Rams. Both of them have 3 wins. I personally feel like LA Rams are going to win this one because they've been like hotter later and they're getting back people, whereas the Steelers were kind of hotter earlier and haven't looked as great later. But both of them 3 wins. It could be anybody's ball game. I called this one my oh my.
I'm going to go Chargers at Chiefs. And we brought this one up briefly earlier, but if you look at the history of, the Justin Herbert era versus the Patrick Mahomes era, when the two quarterbacks have faced off, it's always been like a 3-point game by the end, usually overtime, doesn't matter the stadium, and just huge yards being thrown. I think the Chiefs have won every time in that respect, but it's still a really, really good game to watch. So you might say, my, oh my, the Chargers won. But I'm sure we'll get into that maybe here in our next segment that I'm going to roll into, which is our locks and upsets of the week. And I'm going to start with my upset of the week. The Chargers are going to beat the Chiefs. It goes really well with my oh my game. I think it's actually really, really doable. Austin Eckler's not been looking half bad now that he's back. Keenan Allen still out there pumping. I know Mike Williams is injured. I think he's out for the season. Their offensive line has been holding up surprisingly well. Kansas City is just not catching the ball. I mean, Kadarius Toney, we've seen it. The guy has cinder blocks for hands when Patrick Mahomes is thrown to him. And we talked about it earlier. And we talked about it an hour ago when we started this podcast, is Travis Kelce is the target and no one knows how to cover him, apparently. He's just always wide open. There's never anyone on him. He's right there in the middle and he's able to go for 25 yards every time. So yeah, it's going to be a better game than people expect. The Blake Faiths of the world are going to be like, the Chiefs are too good. They're going to win. But he's not digging into it and looking at, oh my gosh, they're not really complete. That's why they just sent some late round picks to get McCole Hardman back, a guy they got rid of. Just a guy that knows the system to come back and play that system. Yeah, that is my upset of the week. What do you have, Matthew?
Okay, so I had two teams here and I couldn't decide. One was two games. Chargers Chiefs was one of those games. New England Bills was the other. And I couldn't decide. And then I recognized your guys' picks and I flipped it so we would have some difference here. I am going to say it's New England versus the Bills. Patriots Bills, because you were talking about how it seems like Josh Allen is playing to the level of his competitor quarterback. And if he plays to the level of the New England quarterback, that's going to be.
We don't know. We don't know.
But, he was Tyrod Taylor last week, and that wasn't, that was like not expected. So I'm just going to say this. Bills will end up. They're seeing their window close, and those good seasons they had where they had the opportunity to get the Super Bowl getting harder and harder. And I think New England, who's been looking bad, and everybody's like, is Belichick done? Is Belichick done? I think this is one where Belichick comes back and kind of stuns the Bills a little bit, puts them on their heels, and
just like old times.
Just like old times. So that's my upset of the week.
Mine is the same thing Brandon said, pretty much. Chargers over Chiefs, and my reasoning is the Chargers are always up and down. They either look like a great team or they look like a bad team. And last Monday they looked like an okay team. But the Chargers against the Chiefs, they always look like a good team. It's always a close game. I mean, Herbert versus Mahomes, they always throw for like 400 yards each time. And I just don't know how much I can trust the Chiefs defense more than I can trust the Chargers offense. But I just don't know. I can see this being an upset, and I feel like the Chargers lady gonna go crazy.
They're gonna be watching for her.
Yeah.
All right. What about your lock of the week, Josh?
My lock of the week, Seahawks over Cardinals. I mean, we kind of were surprised with how the Cardinals played in a couple of these weeks. They upset the Cowboys. They looked okay. They looked actually pretty good in the Commanders game. They've looked pretty good or okay in some of these other games, but just never been able to squeak out a win. But the Seahawks look really, really good. And I just don't see the Cardinals with that team stopping a team like the Seahawks, especially the run attack. I think that Kenneth Walker is going to have a very good game against a very depleted pass or run attack against of the Cardinals defense.
I am going. You remember I said I had two teams in my upset of the week. One was Chargers Chiefs. One was New England Bills. I put Chargers Chiefs as my lock of the week. That's how confident I am. I waffle between, are they the upset of the week or the lock of the week? And I just decided they are the lock of the week. Chiefs are going to beat the Chargers. And I know you guys are both like, what? So I'm not going Chargers over.
Matthew. You're playing with a fine line right there. But it's a
Fine
fun
line.
line to play with. Fun line to play with.
So I'm just looking at Chargers and Chiefs, and like while I thought there could be an upset because it just seems so likely that the Chiefs are going to win that, I'm like, no, I'm just going to move that straight over to the lock. Chiefs are going to win that again. Chargers are going to end up on the bottom of that, even if it's close. And Chargers lady is going to end up with grief and despair in her emotional camera shots.
All right.
Brandon?
I'm going to go, and I alluded to this in my manure game. Niners are going to handle the Vikings. It's just going to happen. It's my lock of the week. I'm that confident. It's just going to, it happens every time. Don't doubt Kyle Shanahan against his, little proteges.
And coming off that defeat by the Browns, they're ready to get somebody.
They're pissed. All right. All right. I want to transition into our Commissioner's Minute really quick as we talk about fantasy football. Across ESPN, Yahoo, and NFL, there are 500,000 fantasy players that have not won a game yet. 500,000. That is 500,000.
That's a lot.
Our league name is better than 0-15. We had a scare our first season. Dylan, we love you, but 0-12 was a scare, okay?
And by the way, where is Dylan in our rankings now?
Number 1. I've been saying it. He's going to come back. Don't doubt Dylan. He's going to win.
Season.
Yeah, I came out. I called him out in our chat. I said, everyone watch out for Dylan. He's out for blood. He's like, well, Justin Jefferson's out now. Well, what happened when Justin Jefferson was out? He still beat the crap out of someone. So watch out for Dylan. He's out for blood. He's my lock for this week. But we are officially going to be better than 0-15. Brian won his first game of the season. He's able to perform. We are proud of you, Brian. You're not a part of those 500,000 teams that have not won yet. Now, you might be in another league. You might, not have won a game in another league. That's not this league. We don't care about the other league. This league, you're officially better than 0-15. We are proud of you, and we, as you say, are going to go 10-5. So you got to win the rest of the season.
and knowing the way my seasons go, you will leapfrog me and just barely be in the playoffs while I'm sitting at spot number 5, head of the consolation bracket. That's just what I'm going to call.
Yeah.
What else we got? Commissioner's note? Anything?
That's my big thing. Let's play ball.
Let's play ball. All right. We do want to remind you to make your fantasy predictions. Those of you in our fantasy league, go through and make your votes because those votes matter. Do we need to talk about those at all, Josh?
No. I mean, just vote. I would like to say, though, I play Brandon Colmark, and anybody listening in our podcast, a vote for me is a vote for a better America.
Well, a vote for me would have been a vote for a losing last week because Brandon Colmark's little spotty liver, livestock, whatever, beat my backup quarterback with no Aaron Jones in the lineup and everybody acting like idiots. And
yeah, Josh, what are our rankings in the league right now? Are we both in the top 4?
Voting rate leagues or our fantasy league?
Our fantasy league. What are our positions? I think I'm 3rd.
5 actually. I got kicked out, but there's so many people that are 3 and 2 right now that are like, so not basketball 1, 4 and 2. No Jordan or Love, which is Evan Ewens, 4 and 2. You 4 and 2. Dirty Birds, which is Cody, 4 and 2. Me 3 and 3. BLE Wilk 3 and 3. Matthew 3 and 3. Sin, oh my God, 3 and 3. Biscoff 3 and 3. Adam 2 and 4. Abigail 2 and 4. And then Brian 1 and 5.
What a mess. What a mess. But I'm getting back Aaron Jones, and I'm going to find a better quarterback. Anthony Richardson's going to go. I don't know that Jordan Love's going to be my man. I'm going to have to find somebody. Okay.
Yeah, Jordan loves that roller coaster this season. I'm saying it now.
He is.
There might be a week or two you want to put him in, just leave him on your bench. That probably would not be a bad idea. Like when he plays the Bears again.
The problem is right now, the available quarterbacks in this league.
Manure.
Exactly
Manure.
Right. Manure. All right. Well, I see you have a graphic up there, Josh. Are you wanting to throw that up for some reason?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
show me what you got.
I could not
Tell
put
us
these
about
on TikTok because of the format and these graphics. I could put them on Instagram. Had to change a little bit of things. I couldn't put them on TikTok, didn't have to change anything. But Brandon suggested that this week we do. We were talking about it. Brandon, we were like doing something. I can't remember. Oh yeah, no, it was because he didn't have an MVP, and I was like, just to choose an MVP from another team that maybe that beat because the Bears lost or this team lost or whatever. And he's like, why don't we just do fantasy MVPs? And he's like, I could do a fantasy MVP. And the one viewer we have, Nate, who is watching, has also been suggesting we do a fantasy thing. So we kind of just decided we'll do fantasy MVPs along with our Homer MVPs. So this
for
is
our personal fantasy team.
For our personal,
This
it could just be for anybody. It could be a team. I don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, which we'll get to in a minute, which is mine. But I just thought he performed very well, and so he was like a fantasy MVP for me. Doesn't have to be for my team. It could just be like a player that performed very well, or maybe a player that had a bounce back week. He had 0, like Russell Wilson had 3 points or something like that this past week, and he'll have 27 points this coming week. No, that'll be the fantasy MVP, or just a player from your team or a team from another player in our league that like you're losing by 10 points and you need Justin Herbert to get you 11, and Justin Herbert got those 11 points, something like that.
When Matt Gay kicks 5 field goals and 4 of them are over 50 yards.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. I don't have one for this week. I'll tell you that. There is no MVP on my squad this week at all. They're all LVPs, least valuable players.
So I did not get a graphic for those, but
no graphic for the LVP.
For fantasy MVP, Brandon was Raheem Mostert, so we have 2 Dolphins on here. Mine was Amon-Ra St. Brown,
nice.
And Matthews was Tyreek Hill.
What? You're naming one for me? I guess
you said you texted us in our group chat. It's like, I guess Tyreek Hill, but no MVP for the Colts because something like that.
I must have said that. Tyreek Hill's usually a pretty safe bet. On my team, he's probably the one scoring the most points every single week. So, all right. Well, hey, we do want you guys to vote for your players in fantasy. Watch for your players in your real team, and come back and join us next week when at least a couple of us will be here to talk about Week 7 and Week 8 on the Fantasy Fandemic.